Germany has provided the second most in military aid to Kyiv, behind only the U.S. General Carsten Breuer is Germany's chief of defense, the country's top soldier. Hello, General Breuer. It's a pleasure to welcome you to our studio. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I wanted to start on the question of Russia, in really more specifically, in your view, how you would characterize the threat currently posed by Russia to Europe.
It's an imminent threat, what we are seeing there in Europe at the moment, and it's really close. So when I'm looking out of my lot, if I'm looking out of my house, there's a wildfire on the other side of the fence, and you see the fire, you feel the heat, you smell the smoke, and you also feel it in your ears. So in your eyes, it's not that much away, and this is the situation. What we're seeing is that Russia is ramping up, that Russia is really getting into new structures, that they are producing more and more main battle tanks, that they are using those more and more battle tanks not only in the field in Ukraine, but they're also putting it into depots, and this scares me. This makes me afraid. This is really an issue which we have to consider.
And what does it tell you about the current status, for example, of the war on Ukraine and what's happening there?
Well, it tells me at first hand, and if you see that they're increasing the number of personnel up to 1.5 million within the next year. This is doubling the strength of personnel before the war. It tells me that getting the structures together, getting this amount of war material together, that it's not only against Ukraine, that it's hitting more, and that the aim for Russia is different on this.
Well, I wanted to ask you, because I remember conducting a number of interviews with European leaders at the outset of the war, where their warning to the rest of the world was exactly that. This is not going to stop at Ukraine. Is that still the view that is held? And do you think it's more certain now than it was even 2 years ago?
No, I think it's even more certain. So if you see the capacities, if you see what is going into the depots, if you see what is produced in there, and then if you hear Putin talking, if you hear Medvedev talking, if you hear what Kirill, the patriarch, is saying, then you have the possibility and also the intention coming together. And it's even worse of what we have seen at the beginning of this war in 22.
And what do you think is informing that posture from, for example, Vladimir Putin? And how much of it do you think has to do with the idea that he may be buoyed by hesitance on the part of the U.S.?
Well, I can only say what I see from Putin's view, or when I see what Putin is saying and what he's doing over there. I really can't judge about who is influencing him, and I don't think that our problem is somewhere else. Our problem is really in the Kremlin. It's really Putin.
What impact, though, do you think the debate in the U.S., which has been there, but ultimately was sort of stifled by President Biden, who had taken the posture that the U.S. needed to help with Ukraine from a military and aid perspective. There is, that debate has only amplified under President Trump, and he has been very specific about expressing hesitancy to keep the level of support where it is. Do you think that has had an impact on the war itself?
Well, what I see is that we have to do everything which is where we are able to support Ukraine in this war, and the European countries have to stand together. The Western countries of the world have to stand together, because our freedom and our peace is at stake. So if we are not supporting Ukraine, what will be the end? So everything what we can do has to go to Ukraine, especially financial means.
And when you reference NATO, I did want to ask you about that as well, because it's certainly a topic of much discussion in this country. You oversee the military in Germany. Defense spending in Germany has significantly increased since Russia started to wage war on Ukraine. President Trump has talked about the possibility of 5% of GDP on defense spending. Is that something Germany would consider even in the realm of possibility?
Well, in Germany we have seen that we are coming out of a a time of a peace dividend. So over the last 30 years, we haven't spent enough for defense and deterrence in Germany. The money we had, we were spending them for crisis response operations. So basically for those wars we were fighting in Afghanistan, Kosovo, on the Balkans, in Mali. When we are now going back to collective defense, we did not find out, because it was very clear that we have to raise up defense spending. With an extra budget coming from the Parliament in 22 of 100 billion euro, it was a way to, how should I say, to fill in a little bit the potholes, but there's not a street at the moment. So what we need to have is really a defense budget which is reliable and which is continually in growth, so that we have security and reliability for the forces to stand up and to set up what we need to, and also for defense industry. If you're asking for numbers, sorry for the long answer, but if you're asking for numbers, we are at the moment at 2%, and I would see 2% as a minimum. It will go up and it will grow over 3%, I'm definitely sure.
I wanted to ask you, because here in Canada, often politicians who are asked about accelerating our own timeline talk about the difficulty in some cases in spending that money. I'm not sure if that's unique to the North American environment, but I wondered if I could ask, even for procurement in Europe and in Germany more specifically, is it difficult, like if you had more money, would it be hard to spend it, or do you think it would not be challenge free?
Well, it's also of course a question of capacity for defense industry, and this is what we see. If you have a straight budget line, if you know what next year is coming, if you know what the upcoming years are coming, then defense industry is basically able to ramp up its own capacities, production capacities. If you don't have this, then it's always a turnaround. So what I mean is you need this reliability in budget to make it possible that you can spend the money. And if you have this reliability, then you can also increase the budget more.
Do you think if you had that, let's say the reliability that you discussed, 5% would be reasonable?
Well, I think at one point in time, it's not any longer about the percentages. It's more about capabilities, and this capabilities, what we see, what we need, and when we are talking in numbers, this capabilities we're talking about 2%. In 28, 2% means it's 82 or 83 billion euro, coming from 52 billion at the moment. So it's a huge increase, and if you talk about 5%, then it's really a question if it is possible for defense industry to get this straight.
Got it. Okay, General, I'll leave it there. I appreciate the conversation today very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Thanks.